From robot companions, modded weapons, gadgets, and gizmos galore, Inventor is a bit of a troubled soul, to be honest. It has awkward bits here and there, but if you're willing to figure out the learning curve and work with us, we can build ourselves a stylish and practical Inventor. As a martial class, Inventor is a bit of an odd duck. Its high intelligence focus makes it strangely fragile in combat and a bit inaccurate, though its unique mechanics in the overdrive allowing it to boost its damage and unstable actions giving Inventor a special niche as an AoE attack specialist gives it promise. Downsides are, overdrive is frankly finicky at best, and unstable, you can expect to only get one shot a fight. I'm going to repeat this a few times through the video. Overdrive and unstable have your coolest mechanics in this class, but you only get one unstable a fight most of the time. And last, as an intelligence character, you're going to want to make great use of Trick Magic Item to access unique utility spells and buffs out of combat. Now, with all that out of the way, what's Inventor bring? What's it good at? Well, it has the unique ability to add its intelligence to damage with its overdrive. This is pretty good, and notably this is one of the rare ways to consistently boost ranged attack damage. That's what I'm going to recommend leaning into. After poring over Inventor builds, I ultimately realized that most melee Inventors are pretty rough. Reasons being that a low strength or lower dex stat means your Inventor is less accurate than most close combat characters, thanks to having to max out intelligence instead. And the Inventor has the Construct Companion. Now you can specialize in this or just take it on the side with some feats, and either way it can tank hits for your team and is a nice disposable ally that's very helpful. Downsides are that it's still a companion, and at best, you should consider it to be about as tanky as a wizard in your party. It can take a few hits, but not much more. It'll buy time, but only a round or two, and get a little bit of damage in. On the plus, you have a high intelligence stat, which gives you massive amounts of skills. Tons and tons of skills. But, of course, high intelligence means it's really hard to specialize as a martial. As a combat character, you need to increase your dexterity for defense, or accuracy for ranged weapons. You need your strength for damage, your constitution for health. By the way, you only get 8 HP a level. You're a pretty fragile character. And hopefully wisdom for perception and will saves. This is hard. Honestly, this is nearly impossible. You have to sacrifice something for Inventor. Most of my builds end up sacrificing wisdom, unfortunately, because constitution, right out. Losing accuracy or damage, also unacceptable. Now, high intelligence is not without perks, though. You get amazing archetypes, which we will discuss near the end of the video. Great archetypes: Investigator, Magus, Alchemist. Amazing picks all around. Very powerful options for your Inventor. At the cost of, again, having 8 hit points and bad saving throws. Your reflex saves are terrible on Inventor, and your constitution saves are also pretty darn bad. You might realize that this is part of why I recommend going range, using a bow or a firearm on your Inventor, because you're just not that tanky. And you do get unstable actions. This is pretty unique to you as your class. Unstable actions, there's a few for healing, a few for mobility, but for the most part will be used on area of effect damage, allowing you to spike out big numbers in one round and hit multiple enemies. A powerful and unique role for Inventor. Issue is, when you use an unstable action, you roll a d20, and most of the time you don't get to use another unstable action. Most of the time. And there is a small chance of you exploding and taking fire damage. It's kind of a running gimmick for Inventor for some reason. And for more pros, if you go with Weapon Innovation, if you take the Weapon Innovation, you can get an incredibly unique trait on your ranged weapons, allowing you to pick up Ranged Trip. This means with a bow, you can simply trip enemies at range. And even better if you use a crossbow, a firearm, or if you're Game Master is a little lenient and lets you use this. If you use a combination weapon, such as the hammer gun, you can use range trip to knock enemies down, and range trip is not a strike, which means loading weapons, such as crossbows and firearms, don't need to use their bullet and don't need to be loaded to make a ranged trip. It's a very weird interaction, but one that I would recommend taking advantage of. Of course, even that is not as good as it sounds. If you're using a ranged weapon, you probably want to get your dexterity to +3. At best, your strength will hit +2 as a result. And when that happens, range trip has a built-in -2 circumstance penalty to your trip attempt. This makes your trip not that reliable. Your roll won't be as good as you hope. It's fine, it's handleable. And for a couple of their cons, you have a fairly slow class DC scaling, so while your unstable actions provide great on-demand fireballs or lightning bolts, they're not going to do full damage very often. Expect most enemies to succeed in their saving throws and take half damage. It's just going to end up that way. And last, beware reactive strikes. Reactive strikes will tear you up, also known as attacks of opportunity. Many of your unstable actions and your overdrive as Inventor are manipulate traits. Manipulate traits trigger reactive strikes. If a trained soldier or a deadly troll get on top of you, it's bad news. Now you might want to spec into melee to avoid that. Personally, I find Inventor is so heavy on manipulate, so common and so prone to triggering reactive strikes, one of the reasons I recommend using a bow for this build, because look, they're going to hit you either way. Just lean into it. Now, as a quick aside on party members, you kind of are a flex role on Inventor. You specialize in a single burst of AoE damage plus then focused single target strikes, but are fairly fragile. Don't try and be the only frontliner on an Inventor in any build for the party. You'll go down quickly. And you don't make up for having no spellcasters, but you can buy scrolls and wands to fill in a small amount of spellcasting on the side for utility spells out of combat. When it comes to ancestries, though, we're going to get a little weird with Inventor. Inventor suffers from being multiple attribute dependent. In other words, they need high strength, they want dex, and they absolutely need high intelligence to make themselves work. This is brutal. This is really, really hard to handle stat-wise, because you still need constitution or you'll have no health and you'll die. And wisdom's always nice, but do we have room? With that said, I recommend ancestries that boost a mix of intelligence, strength, and dexterity. That way you can use your free boost to buff up whichever one you didn't. With that said, consider Elf. This is your classic pick. High intelligence, high dexterity, but a low constitution means you can increase strength, dex, and int. Very useful. High strength, high dexterity, high intelligence, but you'll die. So you'll definitely want to keep that bow and stay safe because you are fragile. If you're using rare or uncommon ancestries, I would recommend Android as a fantastic pick. High intelligence, high dex, and no need for charisma in Inventor anyways means this is a great power pick. And Colo for an uncommon one. Colo, if you're unfamiliar, is also a term for gnolls. You're a hyena person. They have a high strength and a high intelligence, and the Great Colo Heritage can give you a +1 circumstance bonus to trip. This is really good. I would recommend Colo for Armor Inventor, but it's pretty decent on Weapon Inventor as well. And last, Hobgoblin for another uncommon pick, boosts your Constitution and Intelligence. Now, because you have a high con, you'll have to pick between either Dex or Strength. So I recommend this only for melee Inventor builds. This is a tankier Armor Inventor pick, and you can use the Remorseless Lash Ancestry feat to keep enemies frightened. This will have great synergies with party members who apply Frightened, such as any caster using the Fear spell, or any Charisma character with good intimidation. As for stats, you're going to want to max out your intelligence at +4, no matter what, and try to get your dexterity and strength as high as you can get. With the ancestries we discussed, it's possible to get dex to +3 and strength to +2, or vice versa. That's probably what you're going to want to be pulling. When it comes to what kind of inventor you actually play, it really boils down to which innovation do you pick. For these builds, I would recommend either the construct innovation, giving you a more powerful robot minion, or the weapon innovation, allowing you to enhance your personal weapon. In our case, most likely a short bow. If you end up going with the construct innovation, I would recommend the following modifications. At level 1, the projectile launcher gives you a ranged attack option that's not very strong, but having one at all for your minion can be very useful. At level 7, durable construction increases your health by your level on the minion, which, hey, if this is going to tank hits for the party, every hit point helps. If, however, you run into a lot of casters, you fight a lot of wizards and other such magic spell-slinging enemies, instead go for anti-magic construction, boosting your saving throws and defenses against spells. And at level 15, you're going to want resistant coating for your robot. This is going to give it damage resistance 5 against all sources except adamantine weapons. Fantastic. Really, we're going all in on adding extra beef to your minion so it can tank hits and kind of just gum up the enemy and buy the rest of your party time. That's its best role, frankly. It'll get some decent damage in, but its best role is gumming up the enemy. As for weapon innovations, if you prefer going all in and having a powerful weapon, we can enhance your short bow to be quite good. With that, the most important and key innovation at level 1 is blunt shot, adding the concussive trait, a great way to get around piercing resistance, and more importantly, the ranged trip trait. This adds the ranged trip ability, which is completely unique for ranged weapons, allowing you to trip enemies within your first range increment. For your short bow, that's 60 feet, pretty massive. Now I'll note for loading weapons, ranged trip is poorly defined. This trait normally only shows up on thrown weapons, where you have to throw the weapon. However, for a loading weapon, such as a gun or a crossbow, technically, you don't have to strike with the weapon. You aren't making an attack roll. You are simply making a skill check at range. So in that sense, you also don't have to throw the weapon to give it range. So if we take it as written, you can trip enemies with a gun or a crossbow without needing to fire the gun or even have it loaded. It's a little weird. Talk to your game master. I, for this video, will be assuming we are using that as the rules as written. If your game master says, I don't like that idea, we're going to require it loaded, just go with the short bow. But at level 7, pick up Manifold Alloy for your innovation, which will allow you to count as silver and cold iron, giving you fantastic versatility and helping you stay a broad combatant who will shred devils, demons, fae, werewolves, vampires. It's a lot of value. And last, at level 15, pick up Enhanced Damage to increase your damage dice. I mean, what else is there to say? Better damage dice? Better damage. Every time you shoot your bow, you benefit. That's just good. But enough about that. Let's talk equipment. This defines you as an inventor. This is huge, even if you go construct or weapon. Either way, first off, I recommend studded leather armor. As a ranged build, you have a high dexterity, and studded leather is all you need to cap your armor class and be nice and, well, as durable as you can get. Second, I recommend a compound short bow, or if your game master is more lenient and lets you use a level 1 uncommon weapon, which, yeah, technically you don't get to, but like, come on, you're an inventor and you can't use a combination hammer gun? Like, what, bruh? What's the point? Either way, hammer gun's also a good pick for a weapon inventor, not construct. Not construct, but weapon, it's pretty strong with ranged trip. Otherwise, just go with a short bow and upgrade to a compound short bow when you have the money. Either way, you'll want a melee backup tool. If you're not using the hammer gun, you should pick up a short sword or a dog slicer as a nice, agile backup weapon. I recommend Agile over Otherwise because Inventor's Overdrive encourages landing as many hits as possible. So Agile, giving you a bonus to hit, is more valuable than having a D8 weapon dice on your main weapon if you're forced into melee. You're also going to need the Finesse because this is a dex build. Beyond that, you're going to need, frankly, a lot of tools. Inventor is a class that rewards preparation and bringing lots of things. You'll want an Artisan's Toolkit that will allow you to repair items. Pretty useful. You might want a Crafter's Toolkit, but we can only afford one thing at a time, right? As you level up, pick up a Wand of Tailwind and a Wand of Anthaul. With Trick Magic item as a skill feat and your high intelligence stat with some training in Arcana, you can easily cast these in the morning, get a boost in your move speed and a boost in your carry weight. Small buffs that'll always be on, and that's just nice. You also want to carry a Wand of Pocket Library. I know this spell says rare. It's rare now. It used to be common. I'm not entirely certain when it became rare, and I don't know why. Personally, I think it's really good and not really broken, but talk to your game master if they're okay with it before you try to buy one. And you can also pick up scrolls. Now, I don't recommend using scrolls in combat. I recommend using scrolls out of combat for utility. Helpful steps, for example, Sonata Span, Tiny Hut to make a hut to camp in, Illusory Object if you need to cover up a wall or maybe try to hide yourself. These are all good uses for your scrolls. Out of combat utility is the game. Now, as for skills, you get a ton as Inventor, and that's really nice. First off, crafting. You get this for free. It upgrades for free every time you hit a new skill tier. So level 3, level 7, level 15. You get free upgrades to crafting. Nice. You use this for combat. Outside of that, you're going to want stealth. It's always good to have. You have a high dex, so this is worth keeping. And you will want to pump athletics if you're going weapon inventor. Ranged trip on your ranged weapons, be that a bow or a hammer gun. Really nice. It's a fantastic option and a hard counter to flying enemies, by the way. And you'll need to have a high athletic skill to make it work. If you're going construct inventor, you don't necessarily need athletics or a high strength stat at all. But it doesn't hurt to be trained. Sometimes you want to jump or climb something. Beyond that, let's make use of your high dex and high intelligence. Pump your Arcana and Society skills just so that you can recall knowledge and know things, and increase your Thievery if your party does not have a team thief. Someone has to disable traps, open locks, and occasionally swipe something. It may as well be you. But what's the point of having a ton of skills if you don't have skill feats to go with them? And frankly, Inventor is brutal. Inventor is rough, y'all, on the skilled feats. There's a lot of powerful picks, and you can't take them all. However, you will be taking Trick Magic item no matter what. This is so core on Inventor. This accesses your purchasable buffs, your Tailwind, your Anthaul. It accesses your utility scrolls as we discussed. You want this. Second, you want Quick Repair. You have amazing crafting, and Quick Repair allows you to rapidly heal your construct companion and any shields your party has. In theory, it lets you heal other things, but the main use is construct companions and shields. If you have a pet robot, Quick Repair is a must get. And if you're weapon inventor, Titan Wrestler is vital, because if you're launching arrows to trip enemies, you don't want them to shrug you off because they're bigger than you. Pick up Titan Wrestler, now you can loose shots to knock dudes down anywhere. Dragon strafing the team, prepare an action, and when the dragon approaches, just knock him out of the air. Easy. If you level your stealth, Quiet Allies is a fantastic pick, followed by Swift Sneak. These are really good stealth buffs, help the whole party sneak around. You can use a hero point on the worst party member or buff them up with abilities and aid checks in order to do as best as you can. One mediocre stealth roll beats out 4 stealth rolls, one of which is terrible. And you are a crafter. You are still a crafter. So crafting skill feats of magical crafting, alchemical crafting, and a level 15 when you go to legendary, craft anything. Those are solid picks if you need to craft magic. I know, you're an inventor. You want to craft things. It's the whole class fantasy. Look, you don't always need to craft. Talk to your game master, see if your campaign is one where crafting is something that's valuable before you go all in. As for general feats, it's kind of rough on Inventor, okay? Much like skill feats. Alright. You'll want canny acumen early on. Inventors have terrible perception. Your perception does not go to expert. It stays at train, the lowest tier, until level 13. That's horrid. That's terrible. You're not going to notice anything. And when most inventor builds struggle to fit wisdom into the build, you're even worse at it. I really recommend canny acumen to gain perception, getting it boosted to expert. Retrain this at what, level 13? Though you'll want to end up retaking it later on at 17 to either buff that perception again or buff your terrible reflex saves to master. Beyond that, toughness is vital. You're an 8 hit point class that is also a weapon wielding martial. You're fragile. You need to buff yourself, okay? You'll want it. After that, improved initiative is valuable because you really benefit a lot from going early on Inventor. It lets you set up your overdrive, maybe position for a sick megavolt or other unstable action. And beyond that, whatever. Fleet, it's evergreen, it's more move speed. Robust health is a pretty solid one, makes you better at getting battle medicine, so you can do it multiple times in a day. But they're not necessary. Okay, let's get into what you're actually here for. Feats. You know, the big, fancy, flashy things everyone loves. I know. We got to keep it at the end, otherwise you won't stick around. With that said, I'm going to be honest. Inventor has some feats that are really core. But a lot of their feats are bad. Just not great. And that does open up the option for Inventor to spec hard into archetypes. With Intelligence, there's quite a few good archetypes you can pick. Investigator is a great one for weapon inventors, helping you confirm and land a brutally large unstable megaton strike. And Magus is a great one for armor inventors for close combat, giving you a solid spell strike in every fight. For construct inventors, well, you could use Alchemist for extra support. I will not be discussing Alchemist at this time. That is a whole load of videos on its own. Ooh boy. All powerful picks. Intelligence gives you some very, very good class archetypes you can play with. With that out of the way, let's talk the feats. If you want to go Inventor feats, what are we picking? At level 1, your best options are probably Tamper or Prototype Companion. If you are a Construct Inventor, Tamper is pretty much the best one you got. All the rest of the feats are not that useful. They're funny, but they're not that useful. Variable Core is interesting and lets you change your damage type from your Explosion and your Overdrive, which is nice, but you can't change it on the fly. It's kind of a locked-in decision. So only pick that if your game master tells you that this campaign will really favor a damage type that's not fire. Then maybe swap to that. Otherwise, Tamper lets you... It kind of lets you debuff enemies near you. It's effectively a disarm using your crafting DC, and it rewards having an open hand. This means if you're shooting your bow, which has an open hand, because it's 1+, you need a hand holding the bow and an open hand to fire it, and an enemy approaches you, you can then tamper with their weapon before attacking. That's a great way to get off guard if you tamper with their armor, or a great way to just debuff them by tampering with their weapon. Of course, like any disarm, this only works on people with armor and weapons, does not work on deadly monsters that want to eat you. So if you fight mostly monsters, Tamper's not going to help. Now, if you're a weapon inventor, consider taking Prototype Companion. I know. You think, generic, if I wanted a companion, I'd pick Companion Inventor. You're not wrong, but it's an option. An okay companion is still an extra body on the field. It's a viable build. We won't address it beyond this. I'm just going to assume if you're using a companion, you're Construct Inventor. But no, it's always a viable pick. Now for level 2, this is the easiest pick of your life. You either go into an archetype if that's what you want, or you pick Searing Restoration. Searing Restoration gives you a single use of a pretty decent sized heal bomb for one action, but it is unstable. This uses up your single unstable action of fight. Yes, I know. You might get lucky. You might roll high on the flat check and get a second unstable, but frankly, it's like a 30% chance. That's low enough. We can't assume it will ever happen when it matters. So we have to build our character assuming we only get the one unstable action. However, even with that said, this is great because it gives you out of combat healing. If everyone in the party has different ways to provide out of combat healing or emergency healing, your entire team is way safer because no matter who goes down, you can rescue them if you have to. And that's kind of nice to have. Shout out to Collapse Construct. It's not useful, but if your campaign involves not being allowed to have a robot walking around, it has a use, though frankly at that point, consider not playing a class with a robot that walks around. It might be kind of hard. Feats 4 and 6 is huge for you though. This is probably the most build-defining part of any Inventor build, with your best moves coming in. Now, for a Construct, you're going to want to take Advanced Construct Companion at level 4. This is non-negotiable. This makes your companion drastically stronger, pretty much a required pick. And then at level 6, you pick Megavolt to give yourself an effective lightning bolt spell every fight. This is your best use for your unstable for any Construct Companion. But if you're a weapon inventor, you're going to want to pick up Megaton Strike at level 4, giving you essentially the strongest version of power attack. It's a power attack that lets you, once a fight as an unstable, do a double strength power attack and get triple the damage dice, which is wildly good. And at level 6, you don't need Megavolt because you're probably going to use Megaton Strike for this build, so I'd recommend Visual Fidelity, a fantastic feat that gives you dark vision and lets you see invisible enemies. That's just permanent see invisibility? I mean, that's pretty nice, right? That's pretty cool. And for feats 8 and 10, once again, it's completely locked in per build. Again, if you want to go archetype, sure, but constructs don't get that pick. They're locked into Incredible Construct Companion at level 8. Once again, this is a huge stat bump for your companion. You need to pick this. Then at level 10, you pick Lock On, which essentially allows you to hypercharge your companion's accuracy for their next attack. If you want to swing with the companion, Lock On gives you the most accurate and damaging companion in the game. But for weapon inventors, it's a little different. You're going to want Guardian Lion Roar at level 8, which is a great spammable line AoE. Now its damage is a little low, though the scaling is decent. But what's important is this allows you to spam a 20-foot line AoE without using up your unstable. Therefore, it's great for late game when you're grinding down what's left of the enemy. Inventor often has an issue of burning their resources, popping their unstable, and not having much else left, and they're kind of struggling to finish off enemies because your foundational stats aren't that good. And after that, take Helpful Tinkering at level 10. Helpful Tinkering allows you to spend one action to buff an ally's weapon within your reach. That's pretty nice. So gain the offensive boost you gain, which is effectively a d6 of damage, right? That's great. It's extra damage, and why would you not want that? That's a great long-term buff in each fight to give someone. Now, from level 12 on, it gets a little wackier. If you're a weapon inventor, I recommend boost modulation. I'm not a huge fan of it, but there isn't much else for you to pick. Like I said, a lot of inventors' feats are kind of bad. They could really use some more feats, I'm just saying. Boost modulation lets you pick 2 additional damage types for your offensive boost, and you can spend an action to change damage types. This is good for hitting weaknesses or avoiding enemies with immunities. It's okay. If, however, you're a construct inventor and you took Megavolt, then this is a great time to take Gigavolt, upgrade your sick lightning bolt. Now it bounces off walls. This means you can line up way more than 2 targets much more often, and every time you hit another target, that's a big damage gained for you. Yippee. At level 14, you'll want to pick up Paragon Companion for your constructs. If you don't have a construct and you're going full weapon, then you pick Unstable Redundancies. Unstable Redundancies is possibly one of the best feats for Inventor. It allows you to guaranteed succeed in your unstable check. That's right, at the low level of 14. low level at 14, you get to use 2 unstable actions a fight. Congratulations, you've done it, Inventor. But that is really good. No matter which unstable you pick, be it Megavolt, be it Searing Restoration, be it Megaton Strike, you're going to get a lot of value over getting a second one, because that's so core to you as an inventor. Level 16, we have the same issue we had before, where the feats are like okay, but I recommend Just the Thing on any inventor build. This is a great one, because you know what you are. You are not as good at fighting as a fighter or a barbarian. What you have as inventor is versatility. You have the ability to cover more weaknesses and holes in the class. So I say lean into that and stay broad. Just the Thing allows you to use your crafting check once an hour to make any skill check, as long as it takes 1 minute or less. That's right, it works in combat too, which is really good. This lets you do any skill check with crafting. And since your crafting is insanely good, this is amazing. This is just amazing value. And you can consistently use this every session. At level 18, you're going to want Engine of Destruction for a construct, or Devastating Weaponry for a weapon inventor. These do the same thing, by the way. These trigger a 30-foot long, which is a huge radius, by the way, a 30-foot wide Whirlwind Strike. You make a strike against every single enemy within 30 feet of you, or for construct users, 30 feet of their construct. That's so good. That's so good. In particular, Engine of Destruction allows your construct to stride and gain a bonus to its attack rolls, which is like, ooh, that's a lot of value. This will use up all 3 of your actions, and it's not unstable, which, given that they made everything else unstable on this class, kind of a surprise. We take those. We take what we can get. And at level 20, we take Full Automation. Full Automation, it's your classic martial level 20 feat. You're permanently quickened, and if you're a construct, you can now command your construct every round for free. And if you're a weapon user, you get an extra strike for free. It's pretty valuable either way, but it's like whatever. They only have 2 level 20 feats, and I don't recommend the Shared Overdrive build, so this is all we get. You see why archetypes are appealing? Now, with all that out of the way, how do you play Inventor? I know, we waited to the end, huh? Classic. Well, generally expect on round 1, you're going to want to reposition. You are a ranged class, but when you're ranged, that means getting into the right position and having a clear shot on your enemy while staying safe is a big deal. If you're a construct inventor, you're probably going to want to command your construct. Get that into position. Don't run it straight into the enemy most of the time. Let the enemy approach your team and then hit them with the construct to grab them, trip them, or just hit them from flanking position. Either way, the construct is fragile. If you just run it into the enemy and that's its turn, it's gonna die very quick. Second goal, get your overdrive up. This takes a skill check. It might fail. You might crit succeed, but you might fail. It's kind of rough. Either way, you want to get this buff up. It's going to last the whole fight and give extra value to your strikes. And 3, you want to make one attack action a round. One of the values of using a bow is you can throw out a strike or a range trip every round no matter what. It's up to you to decide if you want to delay and debuff or get some extra damage in. Either way, get those dice rolling. That's how we win. Once we're in combat proper, once the fight has really engaged, if you're a construct build, try to position the automaton, the construct companion, to line up a solid megavolt. If you can line up at least 2 targets and fire an unstable megavolt, you'll get great value. Beyond that, the construct is a solid meat shield. It can land hits or attempt to trip or grapple the enemy. Back it off once it's badly injured. Just because it's a meat shield doesn't mean we need it to die for no reason, right? And if you're the weapon build, we're fishing for huge, unstable megaton strikes. So ask your party to apply off guard to an enemy somehow and maybe aid your strike. Do what you can within your team to make this big unstable megaton strike hit super hard. If you can land a crit, you will annihilate your enemy. If you take a firearm because you're feeling gutsy, and you want a firearm and you land that critical unstable megaton strike, you will just annihilate your foe. It's not even close. It's going to be wild. Beyond that, you're mostly taking shots, tripping when you can with the weapon build. You have some unstable tricks, but that's for late in the combat. Once you've burned your main unstable action and you don't have too much going for you, you're not particularly tough, have your construct attempt to finish off weak foes. Same with you. You can plink away with arrows. It's good for finishing off weaker enemies before you focus down whatever's left. And if you're a ranged character, you probably didn't take much damage over the fight. So, late in the fight, you're high on HP, it might be wise to close and engage in closer combat, or at least bait that you take hits for your casters or any low health allies. You're not that tough, but hey, your health is a resource and you should use a little of it to keep the rest of the team from going down. For the weapon build, it's still nice to take hits, but you have a great rotation at level 8 if you pick up Guardian Lion Roar. While the damage is a little small, it's still a 20-foot line AoE that might apply off guard. And you can roar into an arrow strike every round, and that's pretty good. It's decent value with potential AoE. If you just turn it up and you don't need a reason to move, Guardian Lion Roar into bow strike gives you a lot of value over the long haul. And there you have it. That's Inventor. If you want an Inventor, they're solid. They're viable. I've seen them in play plenty, and they can make work on a team. But I do consider them on the weaker side of classes. Completely usable, but kinda low on the power budget, unfortunately. We can make them work, and that's why we built a pretty versatile and, I think, a Inventor build that takes advantage of their unique strengths. If you really love close combat, well, we're actually making one for that. Stay tuned for an Armor Inventor build for close combat. It couldn't fit into this video because it's so different from what you do for ranged Inventor that I figured it should just be its own thing entirely. But hey, if you got any other classes, any other thoughts that you want to see, let me know. We got a lot in the queue, but hey, you may as well get into line, right? When you're as slow as me, you gotta take what you can get. Oh, but thank you for dropping by. Thank you. If you want, feel free to subscribe, maybe like our videos, and you'll find plenty of other great builds and great content. Class guides, spell guides, all the things an Intrepid Pathfinder needs to be practical and yet effective. Help out your team, work together, and remember, have fun. Bye.